Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
That kid is back on the escalator again.
Pain don't hurt.
Is my boomstick!
Game over, man. Game over.
Welcome to the Bargain Bin. He is your host, Ben Mason.
And he is your co-host, Andrew Luketic. And today we're talking about 2014's Late Phases. We assume if you're listening to this episode, you've already seen the movie. All right, buddy. Werewolves. One of my favorite genres of movies. But what did you think of this one?
Whoa. Late Phases? I watched Night of the Wolf.
Yeah, man. The titles for this movie are all over the place.
It always throws me off when you pick a movie that has multiple titles. Because I'll look up things like reviews and trivia or whatever. Just whatever, Rotten Tomatoes. And I'll get like these different titles and it's like, am I watching the right movie? Yeah, I'm watching the right movie. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, man. When I bought the DVD, it was just called Late Phases. And then I bought the Blu-ray and it's called Late Phases, Night of the Lone Wolf.
Night of the Lone Wolf?
Yeah, I know.
So is that supposed to be referring to the main character? Because there's not one wolf.
I know. But then they just changed the title after that to Night of the Wolf. But it doesn't seem to matter. Whatever version of the movie you watch, the title screen and the credits still says Late Phases.
Yeah, like I'm looking at the IMDb page right now, and it says Night of the Wolf is the title, but then the image they have for the poster says Late Phases. And it's like, I was looking at the same screen and I see two different names, but I guess you didn't ask me about the title. You asked me about the movie, and we're just going to have to find out what I thought about the movie, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair. I went into this with high hopes, and after a few rewatches, I had some problems, but it's definitely a movie I think that's worth talking about.
All right, well, let's talk about it then.
All right, well, we start off with our widower / main character, Ambrose McKinley, played by the amazing Nick Damici. It's really nice to see him on screen again, since I think the last time we saw him was Mr. in Stakeland. Yeah,
throwback to our very first episode.
Yeah, man.
Technically our first episode.
Technically,
spoiler, there might be a hidden cut for people, but we'll get back to that. I thought that he was fantastic in this movie.
Again.
If there's one thing that I will reveal right away about my feelings of this movie is that I love watching him as an actor now. Maybe it's a small sample size to go on two movies, but after Stakeland and now after Late Phases, I am a big fan. Like, he is just so good. And he plays... It's a very difficult thing to play a blind man properly.
Yeah. He nails it, though.
He nails it. And not just that. He's supposed to be like this kind of, like grizzled vet, but he harbors an anger to the world. Like, there's a lot of emotion beyond the physical side of being blind. And he hits the physical, he hits the emotional. Like, this guy should be doing a lot more acting from what I've seen.
I agree, man. And I feel really bad that when we do see him, it's in relatively low-budget films. Like, the world really needs to see more Nick Damici.
Absolutely. Although I don't understand the name Ambrose.
Yeah, I didn't really look into it. It's just a throwback name for me. Like, I could easily see somebody growing up in like the 40s with the name Ambrose.
Anyway, that's my drooling over Nick Damici. But this first scene is the one in the graveyard, is it not? Or not graveyard. Sorry, the cellar of gravestones.
Yeah, I didn't even know what to call it either in my notes. I was like, we open with Ambrose and his seeing eye dog Shadow browsing headstones at a headstone cellar.
Yeah, I don't know what it's called, but like, what an odd scene to start the movie with.
I know, it's very grim, right? Definitely sets the tone.
I had to actually think about this one a little bit more. And I feel like, now this wasn't on my first viewing, mind you, but I feel like on the second viewing, the purpose of this scene was to just show how at the beginning of the movie, he is not ready to die. Like, he even walks away from the retailer saying, like, I got plenty of time. Yeah. And over the course of the movie, it feels like he doesn't think he has much time left. That's the only thing I can think of, man. Only thing.
Well, I don't know. I think this opening shows that he's already dealt with loss, and he is dealing with loss, and he's not dealing with it well. Because I assume he's there looking for headstones for his wife's grave.
Maybe. I thought it was for himself.
Could be. It could be that too. But it feels like his wife died relatively recently, and that's why he's there. But you never know.
Yeah, it's a little ambiguous. It definitely is. Yeah.
But we get to see a cameo by one of the producers, Larry Fassbenden, who really is. I've heard him refer to this before, and I fully agree. A bargain bin Jack Nicholson. He just has that shining Jack Nicholson look, but almost like a frumpier version.
Wait, was he the reseller or the retailer?
Yeah.
Huh. I didn't mind him. I didn't mind him at all. Great. I mean, he only had a couple scenes, but like he had a little bit of humor, and he was, he brought a little bit of lightness to the scenes, especially considering he's portraying a guy who probably is not in the most uplifting of industries.
Oh God, no.
I didn't realize. I thought that was like a legit actor.
Well, he does act as well, but it was mainly kind of gritty stuff from I want to say the 70s. But it's nice to see Fassbender around again. But he also did a really good job playing off of what is basically, I would say, Nick Damici playing Charles Bronson.
I don't know. I think it's nice if you see somebody like a producer or director doing a cameo and it doesn't feel like they are. Like they seamlessly like incorporate themselves into it.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think about Will, Ambrose's son?
I don't know if that's fair. I'm a bit of an Ethan Embry fan already going into it. I have a bias. Ever since Empire Records, I've been a fan of him, whether rightly or wrongly, just 'cause. So he doesn't have the biggest role in the movie, and I don't think he, like, even the parts where he plays off some emotion later in the movies, I just don't find that it has the same weight as what's going on in the primary storyline. So I don't know if there's really an opportunity for him to mess up, really. But that's just my clouded view of it. I don't know. Maybe you have a different take on him.
Well, I also like Ethan Embry, and I thought he was very competent in the role of Will. It's just that I think he was outclassed by Damici. Like, it's hard to co-star in a scene with Damici. He just steals everything. You don't really get a whole lot of character development for Will throughout the story. I mean, we'll probably go on and talk about the father-son relationship, but I think casting a competent, strong actor as the son, like a slightly weak son, was a good job, and I think Ethan Embry really pulled it off.
Well, I definitely think that what he did was pulled off. I just don't know if it was really necessary. Like, he was written into a bit of a minor role, and like I said, it just doesn't feel like his role carried as much weight. It did definitely serve as a little bit of motivation, but I think it was more meant to be a contrast with the father-son relationship. But we'll probably see that a little bit more as we go.
Yep. So we see I guess it was, I can't remember now. I know it was Will and Ambrose. Was Anne, Will's wife, there as well with Shadow, the seeing eye dog?
Well, when they were shopping?
No, and they were going to the new home at Crescent Bay Retirement Community.
No, man. There's the whole thing where he told Will to get off his phone because he was messaging her to tell her he was going to be late for dinner, and he was thrown off by, like, how do you know I'm on my phone?
I didn't realize it was that early on. I thought that was later.
It was literally the first thing. Like, they go to the gravestone shopping, and then they're driving there, and that's when Will is on his phone, and Damici says, like, I know you're on the phone because you're driving like a maniac or whatever, right? He says?
Yeah, swerving side to side.
Yeah, and that was, he was messaging his wife to tell her he was going to be late. So, yeah, she was in the backseat. They totally know how to communicate properly.
All right, I messed that one up.
You sure did, but I'm just going to gloss over it and let's move forward.
All right. Well, it's the first time we see the security guard who just completely ignores them and just watching TV.
The porn addict.
Yeah.
I don't know if
we get to later on.
I don't know if they say what he was watching, but based on the audio, at least the second time around, it sounded like pornography.
Oh yeah, and later on he has the magazine, the porno mag, just called Devour, which
is kind of clever too, because it's not just playing on his porn addiction, but it's also playing on the movie we're watching. But yeah, like this bargain bin Billy Zane just doesn't even want to look up and open the gate.
That's how laid back he is and can still get paid.
Yep.
We walk up to the front door of the new house. Ambrose refusing any help. Constant theme of independence throughout this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But we get inside, and he immediately discovers deep scratch marks in the wallpaper and finds and removes a large claw. Now, I don't understand how that would go unchecked by anybody,
right?
Who is selling the house,
right? I get the idea is that the house is vacant because clearly the previous owner was attacked. Yeah. But how did they resell it? Like, you get a shit apartment is going to come in and paint the walls or change the carpet when they get a new owner, and you somehow just miss a claw.
It's at eye level.
Yep.
It's the first thing you see when you walk in.
Yeah.
And the first person to notice it is a blind guy.
I find it funny that you said first thing you see when you walk in, and it was only the blind guy who saw it.
Exactly. I don't know.
But this is the part that I found odd about this, because I just chose to ignore the fact that they didn't clean this up. Because maybe it is just a really shitty home for people. He doesn't ask Will what it is.
Yeah, that's weird.
He goes and he finds, was it Dolores?
Dolores outside.
His neighbor, to ask her, what is this thing? And it's just like, is it because he doesn't want Will to worry? Is it because he thinks that it might be something that Will doesn't want? Like, you know what I mean? Like, the first reaction, you would think he would just turn to Will and be like, hey, what's
this? Yeah, exactly.
But
that's a very good point.
I feel like maybe they're trying to show what kind of a wedge is built between the two of them with their father-son relationship, and how much, right, Will harbors this, resentment towards him because Ambrose has always kind of pushed him away and kept him at arm's length. So it feels like, like Ambrose just doesn't see that type of relationship where they can go to each other. And I mean, it does give us a chance to see, maybe one of the only scenes where he's charming.
Oh yeah, the old people flirting.
Fine, it's cool, but later he's a real jerk to the old people. It's just Dolores that he's super nice to, and I thought it was kind of sweet. Like,
it's endearing almost.
I love the line where he says, like, okay, I'm paraphrasing because I can never remember these things, but he says, I can't see you, but you smell beautiful. And I was just like, oh man, the guy does have some nice feelings in there. It's not all just hard surface with this guy.
Yeah, until the next scene where the three other women come in to welcome him to the community.
You're getting ahead of yourself. Let's just focus on the flirting for the moment.
All right.
What do you
want to talk about Dolores?
I do have to say this, and I was going to mention Dolores. Probably my least favorite actor in this movie.
Dolores?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was put on for the role or that's just how she talks. But there is a scene where she's talking to her daughter on the phone and her voice is just like nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
You know what I'm referring to, like that shakiness, and it's just like, maybe that's authentic, but it sounds horrible.
It's pretty cardboard.
Yeah.
The performance.
Yeah. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. And I will honestly say, I don't know if there's any other roles that I really didn't like in the movie. There was some that I was fairly neutral to, impartial, and a bunch that I liked. But that was the one time where I didn't like one of the actors.
Well, luckily for you, that was the first one to go.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
I do want to talk about how much of a complete dick he can be, though, Ambrose, especially to the three women who came to welcome him, like I was saying earlier.
Okay.
Like, did you bring cake? I can't eat sugar. And like lines like where one of the women notices, not medals, but I think photographs or something. It says, "Oh, you were a veteran." And his response is, "I am a veteran." He's just short, to the point, no time for these women who are just trying to be super nice and welcoming there.
You know why I think this is, right?
Why?
I think that is his personality, and a little bit of a red herring as to even what I was talking about. His interaction with Dolores was because he needed something.
Ooh.
He needed her to identify that thing. And if he was gruff and rude and just walked up to her and said, "Yo, what is this?" she might not be that responsive. Whereas he charms her, showing his resourcefulness to get the answer that he wants. Now, he does show a little bit of concern for her, but I don't think he wants anybody to be harmed.
No.
But it really does feel like the charm is not his personality, even though I made it sound like that, but you took away my surprise. It is...
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay, whatever. It's not his personality, it's his capability. He can turn it on when he needs to for a purpose, but that's not his personality.
No, he is very resourceful.
And yeah, like, I don't like these three women that bring him the cake and like
right away.
Him. Like, they do definitely seem very snooty or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But in just the context of the movie, he doesn't know them at this point, and they're literally just coming to welcome him and bring him a cake. And it's not like they even said anything inappropriate or did pry too early, and he just starts like pushing them away right away.
Yeah, they're just snooty and ignorant.
But
they're
again,
not trying to be mean.
He starts being rude to them immediately. Whereas at least if they were if they came in and they started kind of like imposing and poking at him, then you could be like, okay, now he's quick to temper and change. But like, no, that's just his personality. He didn't need anything from them. And it didn't matter who they ultimately ended up being. Just that they were in his space was already enough.
Yeah. But even like them mentioning how firearms, nobody tends to have firearms in Crescent Bay. And he's just like, that's nice.
Yep.
Shut them down immediately.
Yeah.
And I didn't think it was legal. What, for a blind person to own guns? It's legal. Maybe you're thinking of retards.
Yeah. Like he is not.
He's an asshole.
He's not supposed to be likable.
Their exit though was like the cherry on top of that insult Sunday. Where they're all leaving. He's like, "I'd see you ladies to the door, but I'm blind."
That's the thing. Like, he's clearly not supposed to be liked, but I'm a bit of a fan of surly characters, so when done well, I find some humor in it.
Yeah, and he, like I'm saying from the beginning, man, he really comes across as if he's playing a blind Charles Bronson. That like really gruff former action hero. We next see your favorite actor talking on the phone with her daughter right before a werewolf attack.
Yeah, they jumped into that a lot sooner than I thought.
Which I'm fine with that.
You know, I'm fine with it. I really felt like we were going to get a little more build up to that.
Do you remember the first view of the werewolf though, of the window?
No.
It's like she's on the phone talking to her daughter.
Yeah.
And in the background there's the window and you see the werewolf, what looks like they're tiptoeing past not to be heard. It does not fit this movie at all. It actually made me laugh out loud.
I'm glad I didn't notice that, because I probably would have nitpicked it to death if I did.
It was awful. It looked like it was out of a spoof.
So anyway, she gets attacked.
Yep.
And she makes it, right? Because they're not going to kill her off right away, right? Like, she's all right.
Oh, yeah, she's fine. Her daughter comes and helps her move.
Oh, no. Okay. All right. That must have just been spaghetti that she spilled on her stomach.
Yeah, she got shredded up real good.
I didn't like the practical effects for that, dude.
Me neither. It was pretty bad, which is rough because I think Rick Baker worked on the special effects.
You know what it was? Because clearly she gets attacked by the werewolf. And Ambrose can hear it through the walls
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they do try to emphasize this multiple times in the movie that he does have other heightened senses because of his lack of vision.
Yes.
Because apparently nobody else hears this, even though she's screaming at the top of her lungs. My issue with the practical effects for that, because she's clearly got like her, I don't know, like her intestines, guts, whatever, like spilling out, is it looked too elevated.
Yeah.
Like, maybe this is getting too deep into the weeds for this, but I feel like they should have been more to the side to look like they were falling out. Whereas like here, because they chose to put it on top, it literally just looks like it's sitting on top of her. And it's like, why is it so elevated?
Yeah, that's a good point. It could be, well, probably not budgetary issues, maybe just a poor choice. But I agree. If it was shifted to the side or something, it would have actually had a little bit more of a shock value, I think.
Or even do like a darker camera angle from a higher distance so that you don't see the elevation, that you're looking at it more from above. I get that there's different, you know, like unless you have a bigger budget, you have to be a little bit more creative with that. But I feel like you had the practical effects, and it's not like you weren't already filming a fairly dark scene. You probably could have gotten around that better. It really was a bit of a down point in regards to practicals for me.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I mean, I do enjoy them sometime later in the movie, but yeah, for an introduction to the special effects we're going to see, it was pretty rough.
Mm-hmm. And then the werewolf attacks Ambrose too, right?
Yeah, but before that, I wanted to talk about how the werewolf was kind of surveying the area around Dolores' house. Because we see it sneak by the window, which is awful.
Well, I didn't see it, but I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, but then it starts like kicking around the pet door, which I thought was kind of funny. And the first time I saw this, I'm like, I'm not really looking for a werewolf horror comedy. I kind of want a straight up horror film. And then it starts kicking at the actual door, pounding at the actual door. I'm like, okay, this is a little bit better. Then it just smashes right through. I'm like, all right, this is exactly what I'm looking for.
You know, I didn't think about it until you mentioned it, but yeah, why was he just kicking at the doggy door?
Right?
Like he was going to fit through it or something?
A joke. Yeah, just a joke that it was a wolf. But I don't know. At least they covered up for it.
I'm glad that you're finding the nitpicks for me, because like when he burst through the door, it's like, okay, cool. If that's what he is, there's no stealth here. But now that I think about it, yeah, I saw the doggy door and it's like, what is he doing? What is this?
Yeah. I'm also kind of curious to know how the werewolf gets into Ambrose's house.
Well, doesn't he go through the open window on the top floor?
I didn't think so.
But it does take place on the top floor where Shadow fights the werewolf, because he goes up the stairs.
Okay, I thought it was all downstairs. No, it was downstairs. The whole thing is downstairs.
The whole thing is downstairs.
Because that leads to my next complaint about this movie. But it's a really harsh scene, right? Where Shadow's attacking the werewolf. Ambrose gets knocked over. Bullets go all over the floor. The wolf like slams Shadow down. And here's Ambrose loading the gun. And it's got the worst werewolf scream I've ever heard. It is absolutely terrible. But after it screams, it just smashes through the window and seems to just slowly stomp into the night. It was not even moving at like a brisk walking pace.
Yeah, I don't know, man, but I don't like this scene.
It's terrible.
I don't like this scene for what's going to happen next.
It's rough, man, for any dog lovers.
I'm not even a dog lover. Like, full transparency, I'm not an animal lover.
Were you just feeling bad for Ambrose?
Not even Ambrose, but like, as much as I'm not a dog person, I don't want to see them killed.
No, nobody should.
And like, it is a powerful scene because it is like Ambrose clearly likes the dog. The dog is innocent and was just defending him. And like, even maybe it's even just the way that Nick Damici played it, but like the way that he's like, it's okay. And he's like reaching over kind of off screen. And then he lifts the gun with the hand that's on screen. It's just done very well. This is where I was talking about Nick doing a great job with the emotion. Like, I felt the hurt and the remorse in Ambrose in that scene. And again, even not being a dog person, I don't want them killed like that. But like, dog had to be put out of his suffering because like he's got these big gashes on his side and he's not gonna make it, and like, oh, it's a tough scene, and I can only imagine what a dog lover would take from that scene. It's a tough one, man.
Yeah, a lot of people will complain that having a pet or an animal dying is a cheap way of getting emotion. But the fact that they don't show it and they actually just let Nick Damici act through that to convey that emotion was a really smart move. And I think it was a legit way of bringing about an animal death.
Yo, throw back to our first episode. What was the first death we saw in Steakland?
A baby.
A baby. So this time it's a dog. I guess that's a step up.
Yeah.
But like, yeah. I guess his movies, they're gonna hit you hard and early. So I don't know.
It's so good, man.
It sucks what's happening in that scene, but the acting in it, the portrayal is so good.
Yeah. Moving on, we end up the next morning, the two moving guys driving their truck through the community, complaining about the smell of old people.
What was this scene?
Pull up to
the movie would not have changed at all if this scene started with where they pull up to Ambrose's house and you just get the one line, "We wouldn't have to be coming back if you didn't leave early," right?
Yep.
But like the whole conversation about how old people smell and how the one guy shares a bed with his grandpa is like,
for the last 10 years.
What is this?
I don't know. It was really terrible comedy to follow the scene we just talked about.
But the thing is, I didn't have an issue with how this scene was done. The actors were fine. I actually did find it kind of comical.
Mm-hmm.
But it just felt so odd and out of place.
Definitely. I don't know, man. That's Eric Stolze, the writer. That's his work. He must have had a reason for it, but I don't think it was necessary.
It is what it is. I say just move on. They get to Ambrose's house, and you get this image of them seeing Ambrose on the floor, cradling Shadow, and calling out for help.
Yeah.
And
that's soul crushing.
Oh man, it is so bad because like they don't show Shadow when Ambrose has to put her out of her misery, but now they just show him just crushed and like the realization that he was there all night.
Yeah.
Oh, it's rough.
And this actually I didn't really think about before, but really makes me dislike Will as a character.
Why?
Well, because from here we go. Sorry, excuse me. From here we go right to the veterinary hospital.
Yes.
And Will and Anne are there waiting for Ambrose to talk with the vet, with the corpse of Shadow. And Anne's just ripping on him like, "What were you thinking, leaving him alone all night without a working phone?"
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, yeah, what were you thinking?
You're
a terrible son.
Especially considering he's blind.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I get it if, like, you have a fully capable parent. Maybe they don't need a phone their first night. And maybe you're not going to expect them to get attacked like that or whatever.
Yeah.
But, like, even later, they show his phone. We're talking, like, final scene in the movie when, or near the end, when Will is calling him. And it's like, he has one of those specialty phones, like the bigger buttons, the braille numbers that a blind person would have. And Will says, like, well, I thought the movers did that. It's like, would they?
Yeah. In what world do the movers set up your phone?
I don't know. Unless they're trying to set that up by saying, like, this is why the two movers were going back. Because the one guy left early without hooking up the phone. Maybe that was part of the arrangement. Because outside of that, I don't know why the movers were even coming back in that scene. Right? Like, he was moved in.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So maybe that was a subtle way of trying to suggest that the movers... Maybe they don't normally do that, but maybe Will made a deal like, hey, I'll kick you guys a few extra dollars, or, I need a specialty crew for a move because this is a disabled person.
Yeah.
You don't know. But, like, beyond that, it's not like they have, like, it's not like they're like, oh, we have extra stuff in the truck we didn't deliver. Like, you don't, like, I can't imagine the mover was there and then halfway through unloading the truck was like, all right, I'm going to check out early and we'll just worry about his shit on the truck another time. So like, maybe that's why they were coming back. And it really isn't Will's fault because he made the arrangements assuming that they were going to do it. But, like, yeah, you're right. Like, Will could have stuck around and made sure that the phone was hooked up. Or maybe that's just how much Ambrose pushed him away, that he didn't want to be there long enough to set up the phone.
All entirely possible. I'm just amazed how much thought you've put into this.
But the thing is, like, I put thought into these things, but, like, I always like to try and at least settle on a conclusion, whether it's the right or wrong when it's my conclusion. And in this situation, I'm lost. I don't know which one seems the most plausible to me. So it is what it is.
I'm just going to blame Will.
Sure. But we do have the conversation with the veterinarian, which I find should have been a little bit more telling because she references these attacks and these types of occurrences at the, I don't know if it is an old folks home or a community or whatever it's supposed to be.
Retirement community.
Yeah. And, like, if there's other people outside of the community that are aware of these things, like, the fact that nobody's investigating or nobody, like, it feels odd to me. Like, if she was a little bit more vague about it, like, oh, we had a similar attack or whatever, but, like, the way she's referencing, like, the frequency of it just feels odd to me.
Yeah, animals attack from time to time. Like, yeah, not like that. Definitely not like that.
No. But, I mean, I feel like it starts to set Ambrose off on what's going on.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Will takes Ambrose home, and we see our favorite security guard again.
This time, he's reading the Devour magazine this time, right?
Yeah.
Which, interesting timing after we just had Dolores get devoured.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of Dolores, when they get to the house, the police are on the scene interviewing Dolores' daughter, who says she should have taken her mother out of the community as soon as she heard the stories. I'm like, geez, how is no one else talking about these stories?
Yeah, like, this is what I'm saying with the veterinarian. Like, it's like people are just willingly turning a blind eye to this.
Yeah.
And we get the two cops, where the one I liked, Officer Bennett, was it?
Mm-hmm. I think so. And
then Officer Lang is just an annoying douche.
Yeah, he really is. Perfect pairing, really.
It is, but whatever.
We get Ambrose starting to dig the grave for Shadow, which is quite sad. But having a conversation with Anne, where it comes up that it was a full moon, Ambrose notes that the next one is in 1 month. And later that night, we see him just start cleaning a rifle.
See,
so, like,
this is what I have a little bit of difficulty with. Okay? In horror movies, there's two scenarios. Mm-hmm. One where the supernatural creatures, the enemies that they have, are unknown to their world, and one where they're known to their world. Right? Does that make... Did I phrase that properly? So, like, there's...
If you want to be very basic about it, sure, but I would say there's a few more.
I mean, if you boil it down, it's always going to be those two. Either people know about it or don't know about it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Ambrose gives you the idea that he is aware of the existence of werewolves, or at least the idea of werewolves, right? It's not an unknown entity as, again, some movies where, like, people get attacked by vampires, they play it up like nobody knew what vampires were. Like, they didn't have comics and movies that depicted this type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if he knows the idea of a werewolf, and he doesn't say it, but, like, clearly he's asking about the full moon, he's preparing, he says he has a month to prepare, he has some idea about werewolves. That makes me think that other people should be aware of the idea of werewolves and how these people, like the veterinarian and the daughter who are hearing these stories, nobody else is putting this together.
Yeah, I don't know. I think this might actually just be a weak point in the storytelling, because obviously he's piecing things together from the sounds he heard, what he could smell, basically the, like, whatever attacked him, like, he knows the size of it. Obviously the sounds it's making, it's not a bear or anything like that. And I think it's just a quick jump, like almost snap judgment to decide it's a werewolf. But hey, man, it's Nick Damici. I'm along for the ride.
No, I get, like I say, he's doing a great job. I think the writing just has a few holes there, which is why I think that things like the scene with the veterinarian and the daughter should have been made a little bit more subtle so that it would not make it seem like, oh, other people should have picked up on this too.
Yeah. Yeah, the writing really could have had a few more go-overs, I think.
But anyway, let's skip ahead because it's not important at this moment. We are where we are. He has put 2 and 2 together that he needs to prepare for werewolves.
Yeah. So we cut to the next morning when the postman arrives, which is a great scene.
I like this scene, but it felt like one of those odd ones to me as well.
Where he's just sitting in the chair, eating a bucket of chicken. And the postman walks up and says, I'm only here a week and already I got mail. Are you Kimberly Carty? Do I look like Kimberly Carty?
Yeah.
Want some chicken?
But again, this makes it feel like, to me, he's putting on a level of charm, in this case a little bit more of a humor to it.
Yeah, because he wants something.
Because he wants something. He's
absolutely right.
He's offering chicken. He's making a few jokes because he knows, like, he could have been a lot more rude about the Kimberly Carty or whatever name it was, like he was in other scenes. But he wants the postman's help, so he makes it a little bit more of a joke. He offers him some chicken because he wants something. This dude is resourceful.
Yeah, agreed. He gets the postman to show him where the blood trail leads.
Yes.
Which, I find it really strange that's still there.
Mm-hmm.
I was always curious about that.
There's a lot of gaps in this, man. You're just going to have to overlook it.
So it takes it to where? Almost by the edge of the woods?
Yeah, and then how he goes from there to the house is beyond me.
Yeah, I don't get it. Because he even turns and just walks in another direction. You're like, okay, sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
But he wanders into his neighbor's yard. One of the women from the welcoming party earlier finds she's growing tomatoes. And the first time I watched this, I'm like, this scene, I don't understand what the payoff's going to be for him inspecting tomatoes. But the woman sees him in the backyard and goes to talk to him. He apologizes for how he acted. The woman goes inside to get something for him to drink. And then he hears that low rasp that he heard right before the werewolf attack at Dolores' house. He finds his way inside the house and discovers the woman's husband is in an iron lung.
Yes.
Now, I haven't seen an iron lung in a movie in a long time. I didn't even know they still existed.
It definitely feels antiquated, that's for sure.
Just like the people, I guess.
Yes.
I know there's a bit of back and forth. I forget exactly what was said. I just love his ending line on his way out.
Yeah, I will say this before the ending line where he asks her, like, what is this? Right? Playing up to his blindness. I don't know if he actually does or doesn't know that it's an iron lung.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, like, it's okay. Let's get out of here. It's my husband. He's in an iron lung or whatever. And he says the line, I'm sure you want to share.
Good luck with your vegetable.
Oh, I thought you meant the line before that when he's like,
no.
What does he say? Like, lucky bastard or something like that?
Something along those lines, yeah. He's got too many great quotes in this movie.
So many good quotes. But later on in the movie, she turns this story into he tried to kill my husband.
Yeah.
Which I found quite a leap. Like, quite a leap.
I know why she did that, though.
Fair.
It's because she's out to get him at that point.
Huh?
No?
What? Really?
Yeah, man. She's already been turned at that point.
Has she?
Yeah. She's because as she turns around with the phone in her hand, you see the bandaged arm.
I did not pick up on that.
Yeah. We will get to this point later on because this is not the only time that happens.
All right. Let's move forward. Sorry. Actually, before we move forward, since I'm in my stunned state of shock at the moment anyway, why don't we take a second here to hear a quick message from our friend Tim? Does that sound like a good idea?
Yeah, dude.
All right, let's play it.
Knights and Nerds is not just an actual play D&D podcast with an original campaign being played by a group of friends who tolerate each other. It's also a podcast where I, the Dungeon Master, talk about how I'm adapting to the choices the players make, as well as revealing to you, the audience, the complex story and deadly twists that I have in store for my players. Find us on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, or at knightsandnerds.com.
And we're back.
Please stop Ambrose on his way home from the neighbors to let him know there have been some complaints about him. We find that there's actually another death, which I missed the first time we watched this movie.
There was another death?
Yeah, they found a body in the woods.
They found a body in the woods?
Right? Doesn't even touch on it again until later in the movie.
Wow, that was really subtle.
Yeah. But this is where they kind of suggest to Ambrose that, you know, there's a shuttle that takes everyone to the church. It'd be nice for him to maybe get out and try and meet some more people and just be a bigger part of the community. Yeah. So he takes his first community shuttle bus to the church and sits between Father Roger and James. Love both of these actors. Love both of these characters. What did you think of either Roger or James?
I agree with you. I liked both of these, but I absolutely liked Roger better.
Yeah, me too.
There's just something about the way that the actor who plays Roger just kind of presents everything kind of logically well-paced, kind of mellow, but also like almost like you're getting wisdom from like a I want to say like an elder, but like Ambrose isn't a spring chicken in this case either. But like there's just something about his delivery that was almost tranquil.
Yeah. And Father Roger's played by one of my favorite actors of all time, Tom Noonan. And he's great in almost every role he's ever done.
I can't place him in anything else, but he has a very familiar looking face. I'm sure I've seen him in something before.
Oh yeah, well he does everything from horror like Manhunter to... Well, I guess he was kind of a horrific character too in Last Action Hero. But he also played the Frankenstein's monster in the Monster Squad. He's all over the place. He's great.
Yeah, he does a fantastic job. And I mean, James does a good job as well, but I don't like the character as much. Like, even right from the start, he's got like this unsettling paranoia to him.
Seems kind of creepy, doesn't he?
He's just very creepy.
Yeah. But during their conversation, anyway, Ambrose does take note that that Father Roger smells like smoke and has a low rasp when he coughs, very much like the rasp he heard at the werewolf attack.
Mm-hmm.
After the church service, Ambrose and Roger have a chat. It's kind of cool. Like their conversations that they have in this movie are almost an honest heart to heart without giving too much away.
I don't think anybody else has as good exchanges with Ambrose as Roger. Those two actors play off of each other super well, and there's even good writing here. Even in the subtlety of things, like Ambrose saying he quit, but then asking for a cigarette, and then he uses that to make a point at the end about how some things are worth quitting, and it just feels so well planned out. But the delivery between these two, like the chemistry, is exceptional, bar none.
Yeah, I don't think it would have worked nearly as well had a different actor played either role. Yeah, it's really good character building scene for both of them here.
And then, nope, go ahead.
I was just going to say, after that scene, we cut to nighttime and we see that Ambrose is actually hoarding gallon water jugs, food, rubbing alcohol, gauze bandages. He's mapping out his home by numbers of steps, and he's exercising, doing push-ups. He's preparing.
I also loved, and I could be wrong if it's this scene, but I think it is, where he has a bit of a training montage in the lawn with his shovel.
No, it's a little bit later.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to talk about it now because I already brought it up because it's kind of not relevant when it happens. It only happens once in the movie, but it made me
amazing.
It made me think of Stakeland and how many times we saw training and actually talked about, like, this is just too many times. This is just too many times.
I didn't even think about that. You're right.
Remember, he just kept training. I forget the guy's name, but the younger guy.
Yeah.
How many scenes did we have where he was training him? And we had a similar, like, scene in a lawn or in a field where he's waving his knife and getting, like, training. And then we get a scene here where Ambrose is in a lawn training, swinging his shovel. And it made me think back to Stakeland, but then I also thought later on, like, oh, we only saw it once. That's appropriate.
Yeah, that's golden, man. I completely forgot about the training scenes in Stakeland.
I feel like there's a certain staple of things that have to be in Nick Damici movies, and this might be one of them.
I swear, man, somebody must have put that in as a joke.
It must have been. It must have been. But, like, the way that they did it in this movie, and I thought it was this scene, is I do think that they incorporated into one of the other ones where, like, he's either counting steps or working out. They put it as just part of a greater, like, preparation thing, and they didn't overdo it. So if I didn't have that comparison to Stakeland, I would have thought nothing of it even remotely.
Yeah, agreed. Because the prepping scenes are actually split up between Will and Anne complaining about Ambrose still digging the grave for Shadow 2 weeks later and how the neighbors haven't complained yet. Then it cuts to prepping and him doing push-ups. Then it cuts to the next time on the church shuttle where the women complain to James about Ambrose being there and that he's a little aggressive or unhinged. And James says he'll let Roger know, maybe they get him another shuttle. Then it cuts to more prepping. And in my notes, I just push-ups, swing that shovel.
So you did notice the swinging. You just didn't put the connection together.
Exactly.
I found the scene where the women complain about him on the bus kind of odd, though. Because he doesn't have any further interactions with them after the Iron Lung one with the one. And in that scene, the camera looks at him and he's just sitting there riding the bus.
Yeah. Not doing anything.
Not doing anything. And they're like, we're not comfortable with him here. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
What do we have next after swinging that shovel? Oh, back with Larry Fessenden as Ambrose is going to buy a giant cross headstone.
Yes. And this is where I started to find it a little odd. Because was he buying this for himself? Did he know that he was going to kill a werewolf? Was this for Shadow?
I think originally he was there. You think it might have been for himself. I thought it was for his wife. And after the werewolf attack and Shadow dying, I'm pretty sure that's why he got the giant one, because it's part of his plan now.
Seems a little odd if he didn't get attacked by a werewolf.
If he didn't, that would be very strange.
But it is what it is.
Yeah. Ambrose asking Fessenden about the nearest gun store.
Yes. And asking if the gravestone can be delivered. Yeah. And I feel like this is another scene where it shows his resourcefulness. Because I don't think he just wants it delivered.
No, he's obviously... it's his only way to get to the ammo store.
I think that's it. I think he knew that, one, he needs it delivered. Because he's not going to get it himself. But at the same time...
there's no way Will's going to take him there.
Exactly. He's still trying to keep Will at arm's length. He's not going to get the mailman to take him. It just feels like he's like, can you get this to me? I need it within 2 weeks. Again, mentioning that it's before the next full moon because he needs it for that.
Yeah.
But also thinking like, now there'll be a delivery man, an opportunity for me to get into town.
Yeah, and like there is some weak writing in this movie, as we've already discussed, but there's some very strong writing as well.
There is. I also really like just when I guess his name is O'Brien in the movie. When Larry's like, "Hey, these are tens, not hundreds." He's like, "Oh, I'm just kidding with you." And I was like, "Okay, that was." To me, that was a subtle joke. It wasn't campy or over the top like some of the other stuff. Like the scene with
just messing with him.
Yeah, like the scene with the two movers, right? It's like it stuck out like a sore thumb. But this, I actually I got a chuckle out of that, and it didn't seem out of place. And even he was like, "I'm just messing with you."
And you know that Ambrose would have had a real smarmy comeback had he not needed the delivery guy.
Oh yeah. But then we get to another scene because now Ambrose is getting out of the car. And he, I guess, we're supposed to assume has withdrawn all of his money.
Yeah, he keeps all of his money in cash. I'm not entirely sure why. I don't think they really cover it, but he ends up having an argument with Will about money because Will wants to take it and put it in the bank.
Yes, and maybe like they don't say how he got the money because I get the feeling that he doesn't normally carry around all of his money, but in his mind, he's preparing, so he needs it. Whereas that's why it stands out to him. Like maybe Will normally takes him into town to get like a pension check or something, and they put it in the bank, and that's why it's so odd that Anne's like he still has that money. Like it feels like this is out of the ordinary, right?
Yeah,
and to me, I got a lot of hints in the movie that he had given up. Obviously, much alluded to in his conversation earlier with the priest, where the priest says, like, I hope you're not talking about what we're talking about. You know, like, you can't quit like that. I won't be a part of it. But then also, like, Ambrose is like, well, what's the point of putting money in the bank if I'm not going to be around to use it? Right? Like, there's some little hints in there that Ambrose is like, win or lose. He doesn't think he's coming out of this. Right?
Yeah.
And then he has that scene where he says to Ambrose, like, stop being like your mother, right? Yeah. And that seems to almost not break, but like it changes Will's demeanor towards it. Like that hit a sore spot because after that he's just like, fine, whatever. Like he gives up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, Ambrose shuts him down all the time.
Yes, but like Will has a little bit more fight until Ambrose brings up the mother, which again, like I mentioned at the beginning of the movie, it feels like it's meant to like highlight that wedge that's between them, because by bringing up the mother, it kind of shows that there was like two sides to it, and Will was with the mom, and Ambrose was always pushing the two of them away. And by mentioning the mom, it kind of reinforces that divide to Will, like, hey, you and I are on different sides. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but that's how I took it, because that's when Will kind of throws up his hands.
Yeah, well, I think you're onto something there, but I think Will is more apt to, like, obviously his mother raised him, and he was super close with his mother, but he almost always lets Anne do heavy decision making, and if he's ever put on the spot, he turns to her almost like, I tried, or suggestions. So like Will himself isn't able to really take a stand for himself. So him going up against his father being like, Dad, I need that money. We know from the very beginning that's not going to work, and he's not going to get anything.
Fair. Yeah, I think there's multiple ways to look at it. Unfortunately, a little bit of spoiler territory here for a podcast that has nothing but spoilers. I don't think ultimately, even at the end of the movie, we really get an answer to that. It's kind of meant to be open-ended. So anybody who's listening to this who's also watched the movie, if you have one theory or the other, can't say it's right or wrong either way.
Yeah. Also, please write us and let us know what you think. After the money conversation, we have Ambrose digging the grave still.
How long does that take? And how deep is he digging it?
I don't know, man. Well, we see that it does go pretty deep.
It does.
But even at this point, 2 weeks in, it's maybe like just up past his knee.
Yeah, and you have to assume he's not doing much during his days.
No.
So how he hasn't finished this is beyond me, but no, maybe he's really lazy.
Yeah, definitely not lazy. But a shrouded figure comes up behind him. Originally thinking it's Will, Ambrose then notices the smell with the line, "I smell you, son of a bitch."
Yeah.
And just spins around and cracks whoever it is in the head with the shovel.
What is wrong with the person that it was?
In what sense?
Okay, if this person was there to attack or scare him,
Yeah.
he just stands there.
Yeah, sneaking up to just stand there is weird.
Right? Like, there's this whole time where Ambrose is like, Will, I don't want to talk about it anymore, or whatever, right? And it's like, do what you're gonna do. Whatever reason you came there, to scare him or to attack him, do it.
Yep.
You just stand there waiting for him to swing a shovel at you. What was the point of this?
There is, I don't know, man. It works in the movie as like if you just sit there and watch it without thinking too much. But yeah, when you really start to analyze the reasoning why the person would be there, you'd be like, there's no reason.
The
Either
whole
kill him or
scene,
don't kill him.
the whole scene could have been improved, okay? If Ambrose starts talking to this figure as the figure is crossing the lawn towards him.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, okay, he got hit with the shovel before he could do what he was going to do. By having him stationary behind him ruins the whole thing. And it's something as simple as make it that, like, Ambrose can smell him from a little further off, and he's saying these things as the figure's coming towards him, and then manages to hit him before he can reach him the full way. That's all it would have taken.
And thank God it wasn't actually Will.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if it was Will, he wouldn't have smelled him, right? Or he would have smelled Will, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's a cool scene, but it doesn't make sense.
Nope.
And then after he, well, no, like you're saying, with him just sneaking up and standing there, doesn't really make sense. But after cracking in the head with the shovel, Ambrose finds his way inside to get his gun. When it gets back outside, there's no one around.
Why does he need to go get his gun?
Yeah.
Just keep cracking him with the shovel. He's right there. You can clearly tell where he is. Just, your montage was not shooting a gun. It was swinging a shovel. Use it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, at this point, even though, like, he hasn't gone to the ammo shop, I don't know why he would think a gun would do anything more than, like, a repeated shovel bludgeoning.
Yep. This is, again, where the gaps in the movie are.
Yeah. And not just gaps in the movie. In the next scene, we have gaps in character judgment, which I just find bizarre. Because at night, the police are at Ambrose's house, saying there's nothing they can really do. And this is the weird part, where like, they say there's no signs of the person around anymore, but they did kill a few dogs. I'm like, no one is alarmed by this? Yeah, the person that snuck up on you isn't here anymore, but wherever they're going, they killed some dogs along the way.
Maybe you should be investigating? You know what might be at those scenes?
Out.
Clues.
Yeah. And then even Ambrose brings up the point, like, he can smell smoke on the scarf that was left behind that the person had over their head. There are so many red herrings in this movie, man. And we're led to believe so many different times that different people are a werewolf.
But here's the thing. In the end, it makes sense. And
It does. It really does.
If it's not clear when we get to it, I'll point it out.
Yeah.
But anyway, moving forward. He has a conversation with the police.
Yeah, and that's done. Next day, and we get some more great humor here, where it's Ambrose, like always, waiting for the shuttle to go to church. And the shuttle doesn't even turn to pick him up. It just goes straight past.
It does kind of stop, though. Like, if you watch, because I watched it more carefully on the second viewing, it almost veers a little to the right, stops, and then straightens up and goes straight. Like they forgot they weren't going to get him. Because at first I was like, okay, it stopped at the corner because there's like a stop sign or something, and it went through.
Yeah.
But like if you look at it, it does veer a little to the right, and then it's just like, oh yeah, we're not getting him.
And then the delivery of his line was perfect.
Yeah. What the fuck?
What the fuck?
Yeah, it was great. I will say this. Then James comes in, or drives up with his car, saying he's like the alternate transportation.
Yeah.
This is not the kind of character you want to get in a car with.
No.
This is the kind of guy who might be at like a playground with candy trying to lure children into it. Like this, don't get in a car with this guy.
No, he's creepier and creepier the more you see him.
Yep.
But we don't really have them in a scene together for that long. It's just them kind of talking about Father Roger, basically.
Yeah, and I will say, because, I mean, obviously, Ambrose realizes that there is a connection. James is very close to Father Roger. And Ambrose is almost like trying to pry for information, right?
Yeah.
Makes sense. I will say this. As creepy as James is, part of it is because Lance Guest does such a good job making him seem like a creep. Like the actor, like if his direction was to come off as a creep, he's doing an excellent job of it.
He sure is, man. Also, he doesn't seem that old.
No.
For living in a retirement community.
No, he doesn't.
Curious.
Curiouser and curiouser. But we get to the church and we have another interaction with the Father Roger and Ambrose.
Yeah.
And this one is a little bit more, I don't know about aggressive or hostile to begin with. But like
I'd say more direct.
It's definitely more direct, right? Because it starts like Ambrose. This is the one where Ambrose offers him a cigarette, right? Like he owes him one.
Yeah. But
like he calls him and like it's not as welcoming, you know, like he's like, Father, I was hoping to run it. Like, I forget what he says, but you know, it's very, he's definitely a lot more skeptical of Father Roger at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good. And again, Tom Noonan shines here. When asked how did he become a priest, talking about how he decided to join the seminary to undergo a full transformation. I was like, God, that is amazing writing.
Mm-hmm.
Throw a hint in there. You got to cage that bad party, you starve it, and whittle it down to a pack a day.
Mm-hmm.
The writing's perfect, man.
This is also the scene where Ambrose talks about his tour in Nam when they strapped a explosive to a 6-year-old, right?
Yeah, to a kid and sent him at them.
The delivery of that was powerful, and even just the idea. Like the premise that, you know, nobody could take the shot because it was a 6-year-old, even though he's running at them with an explosive that would take them all out. And Ambrose is the one that pulled the trigger, much like he had to pull the trigger with Shadow earlier.
Yeah.
It's like he has to make these tough decisions and put emotion aside. And like you can see he does it, but he harbors that remorse.
Oh yeah, that was his transformation.
Yeah, like it is it's so well done. Like honestly, the scenes between Father Roger and Ambrose in this movie have got to be the absolute highlight.
Yeah. Yeah, I could happily watch more interactions with those two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Trying to think what
did
happened.
I throw you off there?
No, I'm just writing. I'm writing more lines for Ambrose and Roger in my head right now.
Oh,
but no. After church on the drive home, Ambrose calls into character, or calls into question Roger's character, which sets Lance Guest off.
Yeah. Like you can insult this community, you can insult this church, you can even insult me, but do not talk about Father Roger. Like the connection they have is just odd.
Yeah, and he's yelling to the point where he starts coughing, and with every breath after each cough, another low rasp to, you know, trigger Ambrose's what's the word I'm looking for here?
Suspicion?
Not curiosity. Suspicion, thank you very much. Yeah, triggers the suspicion again.
Yeah, and like it even does a quick cut to them parked like at Ambrose's place. And James is using a puffer, and you can definitely now they're hinting that maybe James is the one, right?
Yeah.
So it's well done. It is well done.
Yeah. It's good. I feel like they really could do a little bit more with the character of James, though.
Yeah,
especially with importance to the story.
They definitely dropped the ball with him in the final acts.
Yeah.
But I mean, up until now, it's been done well. It's just that they couldn't carry it forward for the rest of the movie.
Agreed. Well, let's pretty much get right into it here, because after that, Ambrose falls asleep on the couch. He wakes up to the headstone being delivered. Pays the delivery guy to take him to the gun store, where he asked not only to have silver bullets made, but a silver shotgun shell, which I thought was pretty badass.
What did you think of the actor who sold the bullets?
Loved him.
He was very good.
Yeah, I don't even know who he was.
No idea who he was.
But it was completely natural for him. You could easily see him being that character.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, like there's a nonchalantness about him that I really liked.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's hard.
Real.
It felt real. Yes, exactly. The actor himself really reminded me of Timothy Olyphant.
Oh yeah, I could see that for sure.
Is that his name? Timothy Olyphant?
Timothy Olyphant, yeah.
I've been seeing him cropping up in a lot more stuff lately.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I really got a feeling like that this guy could be like his stunt double or something. Like there was a resemblance there. But like, yeah, good actor, good scene. Again, shows Ambrose's ability to assimilate with what is required of him. Because like, I don't need guns. I have guns. I need bullets. And, you know, like, he can play up the more military side of him when he needs to. He can play up the charm when he needs to. And he really gets to connecting with this guy a little bit more. And, like, it's just awesome to see how much Ambrose can, like, essentially chameleon himself into whatever scenario he needs.
Even asking the gun shop owner what silver bullets make him think of.
Yeah, the Lone Ranger. That was not an answer I was expecting.
Me neither.
I honestly thought, like, is this going to be the one where they tip the hat of, like, people are aware of werewolves, or at least the concept? You know, like, instead of saying the Lone Ranger, he said something like, oh yeah, reading werewolf comics when I was a kid, or something like that. But no, they went with the Lone Ranger, which was a great connection for it, but not one that I would have put together.
No, me neither. But that basically is Ambrose at this point. He is the Lone Ranger.
Mm-hmm. It works on many levels.
Mm-hmm. I did have a problem with this scene.
Okay.
And it's just a small one. But Ambrose asks if anybody else has come to the shop with the same request.
Mm-hmm.
It's revealed that, yeah, somebody has. And then Ambrose just asks, who was it? And the guy willingly gives up the information. Pretty sure no business would ever do that.
I mean, it feels like the whole business that we're talking about here is not on the up and up.
Definitely like, not.
It's taking place in his quote-unquote office, or
I guess, also
as we can see, the back room of a building. So it's like, maybe this guy isn't, you know, a licensed ammunition trader by any means, and he just doesn't give a crap.
Yeah, definitely when Larry Fessenden, when Ambrose asks him if he knows of any ammo shop, he responds with, yeah, I know a guy.
Now, this will bring me to an issue I had with this scene, but it's in the next scene. I don't know if we want to talk about it now or not.
Yeah, because when they get the name, it cuts to James closing the vanity mirror.
Yep, with all the cuts.
With all the cuts. I didn't like this reveal.
Why is he cut?
Well, it's oh god, he does it later on in the movie too. I'm trying to think of what he.
Is it self-mutilation?
Yes. Oh god, it is self-mutilation, but there's another term he uses. Right,
because I don't know if they're trying to say like, oh, these are werewolf related. even though he seemingly heals every time there's a full moon, so he must be doing it again. And it's just like, is this like supposed to show us that he's the werewolf? And obviously with the timing, it just didn't make sense to me. It just didn't work. It just didn't work at all. But the scene...
How did you feel about 2/3 into the movie? We already know who.
Honestly, I didn't care who it was.
Yeah.
Like,
I was just glad it wasn't Father Roger.
The mystery of who it was not at all a concern to me, so to speak. Mm-hmm. I would have been content with anybody, and I was okay with all the red herrings. I wouldn't have even cared if it was the security guard at the front gate. Just because I was more interested in Ambrose's reaction to it all. I didn't care who it was. My issue with it was just that right after that, they show James like delivering the flyers.
After the burning of the dog corpses?
Yes. Which, I mean, presumably this happened now days ago, and why he's just getting around to burning the dog corpses now is beyond me.
No idea.
But
yeah, the pamphlets. I kind of like the pamphlet scene.
Well, here's my issue, and I referenced it when he was buying the bullets, is he sees Ambrose getting out of the car with the bag with the bullets, right?
Yeah.
And even the expression on his face is like, oh, geez, he knows, right? Yeah. Where if you haven't figured out that it's James at this point, you're not watching the movie. But like, here's my issue, and of course it's probably a nitpicky thing, as I'm accustomed to doing, is he bought the bullets from a guy in a back room. Why does he have branded bags for his ammunition?
Well, that's why I thought it was a legit business.
It doesn't make...
Yeah. It just doesn't make sense.
Even if it was a legitimate business, you think it would be unmarked bags. It's ammunition. Like,
it's America.
I don't... It's just... What are you doing? Make up your mind. It's like the scene with the guy standing on the lawn. It's like the scene with the practicals for the guts being taken out. It's just like they have good ideas, and there's just some odd missteps of execution.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm done my rant on that. Go ahead.
That's fine. I still liked it, though. Like, that being the way that that James finds out that somebody else actually knows there's a werewolf doing this. Or that, no, not that there's a werewolf doing it, but that, like, he's preparing to take on the werewolf.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, it cuts to night after James runs off, and Ambrose finishes digging the grave and lays Shadow's corpse in it, apologizing for everything.
This has been a month now.
Yeah.
His Shadow has been sitting there decomposing and smelling in the sun for a month.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, man.
I know, it's pretty terrible.
Come on. A month.
Yeah.
That's all. I move on, because I'm just going to keep repeating myself otherwise.
All right. Will shows up at Ambrose's house that night, and Ambrose just pops out of the closet with a gun and almost shoots Will, who freaks out at the state of the house after that, worrying about Ambrose's mental health. And Ambrose says it's part of his system, and he'll have been there for a month tomorrow. And this is where the viewers are told that Anne is pregnant, and she and Will are moving. And Ambrose again takes the role of the authoritarian parent and verbally beats down Will. And then he calls out his father as to why he lied about throwing his wedding ring in his mother's grave. It seemed to be a whole lot of emotional unpacking in a very short time with this scene.
This is a general thing with the movie, and it's one that I've had with a few movies we've talked about, is when they get to like the final act, it just feels like it goes fast forward. Like, they have such a slow burn for development and for intrigue, and then it just goes into hyperdrive, and it's just like, so much of this could have been put into the earlier scenes with Will, and they're just throwing it all out at once.
Yeah. I really don't like the dynamic between Will and Ambrose. I really don't... Like, I understand why Will's in the movie, but I really don't like the fact that Will is in the movie.
I mean, it's a bad execution. I get the idea. It's meant to show how much, how disconnected Ambrose is, and one of the closest connections you're going to have in your life is your child.
Yeah.
And if he's this disconnected from Will, and he can, and he requires like almost chameleon tactics to blend in, like he is so isolated from the world that he can't see anymore. But it's just not executed great.
Nope. It is not, and I feel like it takes away from the movie, especially the fact that we're already in the third act.
Mm-hmm.
After this scene, this is where I was saying James starts turning residents. He starts turning the women from the welcoming party.
Yeah, see, and I didn't get that the one was turned earlier. I thought that this all happened in this scene.
Yeah, no, the phone call to the police from the woman saying that Ambrose was almost killed her husband. That happens after she gets bit. That happens after here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, never mind then. But see, this is what I'm saying. Like, they want to get rid of him so much earlier, before she gets turned.
Yep.
That was what I was contesting earlier.
Now, and that would make more sense to have that there, but like you were saying, they just cram so much into the final act of the movie. Like, that's just another bit that's in there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for cramming stuff in, we have what could have been an awesome Father Roger Ambrose scene again. And I mean, it was good. It's just, they're just rushing it. So I did enjoy the lines like, you always wanted to save lives, right? It's never too late to save your own.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I feel like cramming that was almost like a waste when you see what could have been, or what was previously in the movie between Roger and Ambrose. We now get Father Roger going to see James. He hears screaming when he pulls up and runs to the backyard and finds James cutting himself. Oh, yes, it was called an act of contrition. That's what James was calling it. The self-mutilation.
Fair. I guess he does it every cycle so that it can heal. I don't know.
He claims that the prayers and rosary that Roger gave him didn't work. It says that Roger doesn't believe him. This is Tom Noonan doing great stuff here, saying that he believes that James believes what he's dealing with is true.
Mm-hmm.
And James states that he killed the thing in the woods, but it got to him first, and then he starts to transform. And this was the other body that the police mentioned they found earlier in the movie.
Well, we never
find out who that person is.
No, I don't think it's relevant.
It's not, but it makes me question who was the first werewolf, and if that retirement community is so far out in the middle of nowhere, it seems weird that it would just specifically go through the woods to find this isolated community. I mean, like, it makes sense, right? But I don't know how logical werewolves are.
I mean, you would think that the logic comes from their human side when they're hunting and prepping their kills, right?
I guess so.
Because
I'm not going to pretend to understand how werewolves work.
It does feel like James is kind of premeditating his attacks, like picking his targets beforehand.
Yeah.
Right? And like retirement community might be a better option because, some of them might not have family. Some of them might be alone there. They can't fight back as well, right?
Yeah, and that was stated. Who said that earlier? Elderly people can't defend themselves.
No idea, dude.
Oh, well. Anyway, sorry. Moving forward.
Yeah.
Ambrose hears all of the dogs.
I want to go back to the relationship with James and Father Roger, because James says, I want you to know that when I kill you, it will be an act of mercy or something like that.
Yeah.
Or it'll be an act of love. Because that's when James reveals, like, if you get attacked but you don't kill it, they turn, right?
They'll turn. Yeah.
And it's just like, did they build up enough of a relationship of admiration between James and Father Roger?
Well, it seemed like James would just be the guy who would tag along behind Roger.
Because it seems like the whole red herring about Ambrose smelling smoke is probably because James spends so much time with the father that he got a scent on him. But
exactly.
I don't know if they necessarily built up a relationship or a motivation for James to be that enamored with Father Roger.
No, they didn't. It's kind of weak.
Oh, well. Okay.
Actually, this has me thinking now, too. How would James know the werewolf rules?
I mean, I guess when you turn into a werewolf, you inherently you learn all the rules just by
being
osmosis. I don't know, man.
That's That's a problem I have with this movie. I just realized now. Oh, that sucks. Oh well. Moving on. Ambrose hears all the dogs in the community barking and knows something's begun. Really cool shot of Tom Noonan, frozen in fear, watching James transform.
What did you think of the actual transformation?
Oh, it was pretty rough, man.
It was rough.
It was pretty rough.
The practicals in general in this movie were not fantastic.
No. Although the face ripping scene was awesome.
Yeah, there are some highlights, but in general, I don't think that this had the best
it's
practicals.
Pretty weak. Also, pretty terrible werewolves.
Yeah, they are not good werewolves.
We'll get to that though, because I want to ask you about that afterward.
Okie dokie.
Father Roger runs to his car, fumbles with the keys to get started. As he does, he turns on the headlights, and the werewolf's in front of him, smashes the windshield. Roger's dead. Made me sad.
I would have thought they'd do more damage to the hood that he landed on, but apparently not. Just the windshield that he punches through.
Yeah. What a horrible jump, too. Ambrose goes to see Mrs. Baker, one of the women, finds her husband, who's an iron lung, has had his head ripped off, which is pretty cool. And then a werewolf attack out of nowhere, and Ambrose gets his guts ripped good.
Yeah.
At that point, I'm like, okay, he's dying.
Well, I mean, I felt like he was going to be dying much earlier. Not because of anything that happened, but they foreshadow it so heavily. Like,
yeah, they do.
There was a very large part of this movie where I was like, he's not making it out of this.
No. What really made me thought he was gonna die pretty much right after this is when he calls Will to make amends. Has to leave a message.
Yeah, and I don't know if that was necessarily because he thought he wasn't going to make it, or more because of his discussion with Father Roger. Yeah. When Father Roger tells him it's not too late to save yourself, it's almost like Ambrose takes that as to say that, like, you know, your child is a reflection of you, you know, like by saving any sort of relationship or warning or, you know, giving Will his blessing, he's saving himself because that's what's more important.
Yeah. I think we could look at it both ways, really, because when you hear the phone call at the end, it really is like a goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, after like leaving the message, puts on his decorated military uniform, sharpens his shovel, which I thought was awesome, and puts in his hearing aid, loads his gun, getting ready for the showdown. Yeah,
and like I thought that the putting on of the uniform was a very good touch, because I don't know if it's before or after how he talks about like how like being a soldier was the only thing he knew.
Yeah,
and it just made sense that like if he does feel like he's gonna go out and he's not gonna make it, that he's gonna go out as the one thing he knows how to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's just all of the things that contributed to that to me.
Yeah, and we get a really meaningful montage of preparation lead right into our favorite security guard again.
Who is the worst security guard ever? He sees a werewolf on camera, and I get it. I'm not expecting him to like 80s hero style up run at the like werewolf or something. But he just books it out of there without even hitting like a panic button. I would have to imagine they have a line to the police. Like anything. He just books it out of there.
Yeah, sees the werewolf on the CCTV and just bolts.
Which I don't know how we saw that, because you'd think he would have used up the camera TV by putting porn on it or something.
Yeah.
The security
Yeah,
guard.
it's weird.
made
The
no
one time
sense
he's
to me.
actually doing his job.
Yeah, it makes no sense to me. This security guard. I don't know.
I don't even know the point of that. Like, I guess it was just for comedy. I guess it also sets up Will having to climb the gate after not being able to get in touch.
You know
with
what
his
would have
father.
set up that whole thing as well? Having a gate with a key fob on it.
Yep.
You didn't need that security guard. Honestly, you could have had it where, like, Ambrose is blind, so he can't find the key fob to open the gate. And then when Will gets there, he doesn't have one himself, so he has to climb the gate.
Yeah, somebody's paying those wages. May as well save it.
Like, there's... The security guard, much like the two movers, is not necessary at all.
No.
But hey, it is what it is. I'm reading too much into an irrelevant character.
All right. Well, we get Ambrose throwing his bloody shirt out the window to use as bait, and waits, using his hearing aid, which is incredibly powerful somehow, as a way to determine where the wolves are.
Well, I think the whole idea is that his hearing was phenomenal without the hearing aid.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there was so many examples in the movie where he could hear things that maybe you or I might not have heard.
Yeah.
Because it's a little further out or this or that. I think it's just meant to emphasize, like, if he can hear that well without a hearing aid, what's he going to hear with it amplified? Because it almost does pain him even when the phone starts ringing, when Will gets there and he can't open the gate and he starts calling him.
Yeah, rightfully so. Like, that should damage your hearing.
Right? And I think that's the whole thing, is he was using it because he knew how much it would amplify it. Not because he needed it, but, you know, much like you or I might use a telescope in a situation, right? We can see, but we're using it to heighten that.
Yeah, of course. But I feel like it's almost used for location of the wolves for him. It's not like, because no matter what, if he can hear well or super well, all you know is that the wolves are outside, near the window somewhere, not necessarily directly in front of it.
I honestly didn't have that much of a problem with it.
Yeah.
Because even when we hear things, we can kind of determine directional a little bit. We can determine if it's further off or closer to. It wasn't the biggest stretch for me in this movie by any means.
Yeah. I just don't think it was necessary to include.
No.
But
no,
whatever.
He could have just been standing there and I would have believed that he could hear the werewolves because they were a few feet out. It's not like he threw the shirt that he used for bait 100 yards. He threw it like 10 feet in front of him. I would have believed he could hear that without his hearing aid.
Agreed. So we get a full-on look at these horrible werewolf designs. He shoots one. He pops one in the heart right away.
Yeah, he does pretty well.
Yeah. And another wolf jumps up to the window of the second story, I guess, takes a bullet and down. He's doing really well for himself. Really well for himself.
He has silver bullets, right?
Yep. There's a werewolf in the house. Ambrose wrestles with it and accidentally shoots himself in the foot before shooting the wolf twice.
Mm-hmm.
That made me wince real bad.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't have a problem with it.
Really?
No.
Oh, weird. Okay, maybe it's just me. The third werewolf dives through the window and eats a shotgun blast to the face.
Do you think he made it? Do you think he survived? He's just
maybe.
sleeping, right?
It's a chance. Yeah. He's in dreamland.
At least he went with the subtle approach of jumping through the window. I guess it could have been she. I'm not sure. I'm not sure which one it was, but
good point. Yeah, no, that was absolutely amazing, though.
Oh, the look of the werewolf jumping through the window?
No, the shotgun blast to the face.
Oh yeah, you would say great shot, right? But
ooh. Will arrives at the gate to check on his father. Gate's been abandoned. Father's not answering, so he scales the gate to get inside.
Well, first he tries to force it open.
Yeah.
For like a second and can't even budge it and was just like, well, that's not going to work. I'm not cold.
Ambrose seen then using Shadow's body as a trap.
Wait, before he scales the gate, doesn't he try to call? He uses his phone.
Yeah, he calls.
Yeah. Okay, no, we're past that. My bad.
Yeah. Ambrose had been using Shadow's body as a trap the whole time. Navigates his way to where the grave is, and the werewolf is in the grave examining the corpse. Ambrose shoves the massive headstone he bought in on top of it,
Well, he doesn't shove it. He had rigged up like a pulley system.
Oh, he had rigged it up, yeah, to drop it.
He had rigged up like a pulley system.
Oh, he had rigged it up, yeah, to drop it.
Because it was heavy.
So heavy.
He asked the guy who was delivering it, "Is it heavy?"
Is it heavy? But it doesn't work. They get into a full-on fight, man versus werewolf. Ambrose does get in some good shots with his shovel, but the wolf shoves him to the ground and bites him. Wolf goes to bite him again, and it's blocked with the shovel's handle, which splits in two, and Ambrose stabs the wolf in both eyes, then shoots it. Like, that's some overkill.
That was maybe the most campy part of the movie for me. It was when the wolf like cocks back, hits head, and you see the two shovel pieces sticking out of its eyes, and I was like, I could have done without this.
It doesn't fit in this movie.
Yeah, it doesn't fit.
No. What does fit is Ambrose finding his way to his rocking chair on the porch and slowly rocking himself until he dies.
Yep. And I think maybe a little late for this, but we see Will shows up, and he sees a corpse on the ground because the werewolf, upon dying, has transformed back into human form.
Yes. But then turns to see another werewolf still in wolf form slowly dying. But it does kind of reinforce the idea that maybe people haven't caught the werewolves because when they get killed, they turn back into human, and people are just seeing the corpses thereafter. Yeah. Entirely possible. But Will finding his father dead in the rocking chair is a pretty rough scene.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with the voiceover of Ambrose's message he left on Will's phone playing.
Doesn't he, if I'm not mistaken, doesn't he close Ambrose's eyes?
He closes his eyes. Actually, the message isn't playing at this point. It's immediately after this, in the morning. Where
I had a difficult time with the closing of the eyes.
Yeah? Why's that?
I don't know. It's almost symbolic. Like, his eyes were already closed to the world when he went blind. And not just from a physical standpoint, but even from a mental, emotional standpoint. He had given up on the world at that point.
Yep. And that's basically what he says in the message, too.
Yes. And, like, I don't know. It was just something about it. When Will closed the eyes, it was just like that was the last part of him that was connected to the world, even though he couldn't see.
Yeah.
It was weird. I don't know.
It's good. It's a good scene, man.
It's probably the best scene that Will has with Ambrose, which is odd considering that Ambrose is just sitting in a chair at that point, dead.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That's by far their best scene together. Most meaningful, anyway.
And then it goes to the next morning.
Where he checks his messages, and we hear the recording from his father explaining and apologizing for why he always acted the way he did. Mm-hmm. And then it's our very last scene at the graveyard. I don't like this ending.
What was the point of this?
I don't know. But
and
it's Will and Anne standing at the foot of Ambrose's casket before it's actually lowered into the ground. It doesn't get lowered in the shot, or in the scene anyway. But as the recording of Ambrose's message ends, Will picks up his father's rifle, aims it at the rising moon, and pulls the trigger, and that's cut to black. Movie's over.
Yeah, like, this part, first of all, I get that it was just Will and Anne at the funeral, because Ambrose had pushed everybody else away.
Yeah.
And I would have even accepted if Ambrose was just shooting a gun into the sky, because Ambrose was a military man. 10 gun salute is not an uncommon thing in military funerals. But shooting it at the moon, I was like, are they foreshadowing a sequel? Does Will know that there was something with the... Like, obviously Will knows because he saw the werewolf dying and transforming, but does he think that Ambrose was a... Like, what are they trying to hint at here? It's too much meaning for no meaning.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. It was muddled. Something got lost. I don't know what they were going for, but I didn't like it. I thought it was a weak ending for a great movie.
Yep. And that's the end of the movie. Roll credits.
Yeah, exactly. What did you think of the movie, all in all?
What I thought was, I want to know how this movie did.
I don't really know how this movie did in all honesty.
Did it? Did it?
I know it was a estimated $22 million budget. I don't know what it grossed. The reviews are not the best, man. It's a 6 out of 10 on IMDb. Rotten Tomatoes, a tomato meter, it's at 62%, and an audience score of 44. I don't agree with any of those. Personally, I would put it at a 7.
Out of 10?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why is that?
It's a okay. How can I sum this up?
I don't know. You're the one doing the summing.
The characters are great, except for Will. We've been over this.
And again, Ethan Embry is not the problem. I put my bias aside, but he did fine. His character was not written well.
No, the character was poorly written. The actors are amazing. Tom Noonan, phenomenal. Nick Damici, we've been over. Lance Guest even was good. The werewolf design, the actual design of the werewolf was terrible.
Oh yeah,
they look more like rats. The sound design for the werewolves was terrible. It was more annoying than anything. It was super shrill. There was no howl that was really even close to your standard werewolf howl, or what you think of when you think of werewolves. It just sounded, well, I guess like a monster. If that's what they're going for, they got it. The story, very simple, but awesome. Like, it was very effective storytelling. And I think there's really no good way to evolve the werewolf mythos right now, without taking it along the lines of, like, new video games set in the same world as what Vampire the Masquerade. So taking what we know about your stereotypical werewolf film and making it fun like this through, well-written characters, well-trained actors, that even suffers from poor werewolf design, as long as it has a good story and competent people backing it, I think you got a good movie here. It's not amazing, but there's a lot worse out there. So yeah, I think 7 out of 10 is a fair rating.
I didn't know we were giving ratings.
Well, I didn't come into this planning on it, but I'm just saying I don't think it deserves a 44%.
I'm with you, man. I don't think it deserves a 44%.
That's how you feel? Final thoughts on that one?
What do you want from me?
I don't know, man.
All right, let me clarify. I think it deserves better than a 44, not worse. I actually did enjoy this movie.
Good. I'm glad.
I have to emphasize that there are a lot of issues with this movie. Specifically, like I've pointed out, a lot of good ideas with poor execution in this movie.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that it's carried by the lead actors.
Mm-hmm.
If it was anybody other than Nick Damici, if Tom Noonan and Lance Guest weren't as good as they were, it probably would have suffered so much more for it. But how do I put this? You know me. I nitpick a lot, and I have a tough time forgiving a lot of plot holes. It was not as difficult to overlook the plot holes in this one because the movie was just kind of fun.
Yeah, it was.
If somebody could redo this movie with a better budget for practicals, definitely better practicals, and kind of shore up the plot hole weaknesses. Again, I've said it many times on episodes, better people can think of the ideas than you and I, even though we were able to come up with some basic ones, right? Like little things, like having the scene where he gets not attacked, but confronted on the lawn. Have it where he's in motion, like just little tweaks, but still get the same actors back. They could make a fantastic movie. In its current sense, in its current state, it's just a decent movie.
Yeah.
Those are my thoughts on it.
I think it will be a nice surprise for anybody who takes the chance to watch it. It's not going down as a classic like American Werewolf in London or The Howling, but it's competent. It could have been, like you said, it could have been amazing. But I'm happy with what we got. I thought it was a really fun watch. I really like talking about it.
I will say this, after watching Stakeland and how much I enjoyed Nick Damici in it, if I knew everything that I know about this movie now, prior to going into it, I still would have enjoyed it just to see Nick Damici have another stellar performance.
And a completely different character.
A very difficult one, mind you. The amount of emotion and physical acting that he had to do versus Stakeland, because in Stakeland, he was almost an emotionless character.
Yeah.
And did a great job conveying different moods and feelings through no emotion. But in this case, doing it as an emotional character with the subtleties of the charm and the physical, blind acting, he knocks it out of the park. He shows you that he can do a lot of different things. And yeah, go ahead.
Can I just give you 2 quick bits of trivia about the movie I think you might find fun?
Sure.
Well, one directly involves Nick Damici. He was trying to figure out how to act as if he were blind, so he put on a blindfold and would try and do his day-to-day routine with his eyes covered. Apparently, he just burned himself every time he tried to make food, and every time he tried to light a cigarette.
Oh, well, maybe do it in select situations, but I guess, hey, that's dedication.
Yeah, so he realized that covering your eyes is not the same as being blind. So what he did is try to look straight ahead and use his peripheral vision to guide him.
And that makes more sense because you could see, like, he even referenced it in one of the conversations with Father Roger, when Father Roger says, like, you look like you were really paying attention. And he says, I'm blind. It always looks like I'm paying attention. But it really is also, at the same token, a bit of a nod to what is required of an actor playing a blind person, because you really do kind of see where there's like a focus somewhere else, as if you're using your peripherals. And I don't know, there's a lot that he did well with this.
Yeah, he was he was probably the best choice for this role possible. It was great to see Nick Damici on screen again.
And what was the other piece of trivia?
Where they filmed the retirement community.
Okay.
Was actually a development that was in mid-production. So they had some houses that were fully built, some were partially built, and some were just the framing.
Okay.
So if they needed to actually film in one of the houses that is lived in, they would just set decorate it. If they needed one that had like partial damage, like the windows were gone, like a werewolf jumping through, they'd use one that was only partially constructed. And if they needed to destroy everything in the unit, they would go set up inside one of the just simple frame houses they had. So they had like basically 3 different stages of sets they could use depending on how damaged they had to be in the shot.
That's some good planning.
Yeah. Puns.
Well, I think we've said everything we can about this movie.
I think so.
I think now it's time to ask people to tell us what they thought of the movie.
Please do. I'm very curious.
You can find us on Twitter at BS Bargain Bin, also on Facebook at the same handle, or you can shoot us an email if you want to do something a little bit more long form at bsbargainbin@outlook.com. With that being said, comments can also come in for what we're talking about next week, which, Ben, what is that?
It is 1993's Last Action Hero.
A great classic comes to the screen.
Take thy hand, fair prince.
Who said I'm fair? To be or not to be? Not to be.
Columbia Pictures is proud to present the screen's greatest action hero, Jack Slater.
Don't even think it, Slater, you hear me?
This is the Lieutenant Governor.
The governor gets here, call me.
And Danny Madigan is his biggest fan.
Jack Slater 4.
But tonight, a magic ticket
It's a passport to another world.
will get Danny closer to the action than anyone ever dreamed.
Holy cow! I'm in the movie!
Who the hell are you?
Don't shoot me! I'm Danny Madigan, I'm a kid!
And you're going with him
Who is this twerp? And where's that smile on his face?
I don't even know these kids.
to a world that's bigger than life
This ticket is magic, and it really works.
and better than real.
You really believe that you're inside a movie, don't you?
Yes! The bad guys are in there. I've seen it. On screen.
Could I speak to the drug dealer of the house, please? Have a nice day.
Have him killed.
This summer, it's head-on thrills.
I have killed people smarter and younger than you.
Head-first excitement.
I hate when it happens.
He's got the ticket!
Now I possess power. Real power.
He's going over to my world!
In this world, the bad guys can win.
The door must still be open, come on!
If I go, how do I get back?
And it's coming at you from both sides of the screen.
Where am I now?
This isn't the movies anymore, Jack. Please be careful. Things were different here.
Damn it, that hurt.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is Jack Slater.
This hero stuff has its limits.
And Jack Slater is
Everybody down! Now!
the last action hero. The big ticket for '93.
I'll be back. Ha! You did not gonna say that, did you?
That's what you always say.
I do?
Until next week, have a good one.
All the best, guys.